What has changed in the NFC West in terms of dynasty football? A lot, I would say, especially with one specific team. But that's what we're talking about today's video, just kind of going over the landscape of the dynasty world. It's October 6th, so it's Friday. The week 5 has not started yet. By the time this video comes out, it'll probably be over, so keep that in mind. Brian, NFC West, a lot of interesting stuff going on here in terms of dynasty, I would say, for a lot of the teams, not just the Rams, which is the obvious one.
No, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of moving and shaking here for sure.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So it'll be interesting to look at. Again, we're just going to kind of talk about like what's changed and kind of what's the right moves to make as of now in terms of these players and things like that. So and just kind of looking back at moves you could have made with these players and if it was smart and if it was not. So but yeah, we'll kind of just get right into it, starting with the San Francisco 49ers. And I think the biggest thing here is Brock Purdy, because obviously he came onto the scene, looked really good last year, won every regular season game, was throwing 2 or 3 touchdowns every game. But there were still a lot of doubters. Obviously the guy was the last pick in the entire draft. Still a lot of doubters. Like, can he do it? Is he had the injury? Is he going to win the job? He won the job, and he's looked good to start the season again. So he's up to QB 12 on the season. What do you think with Brock Purdy? Like, do you think? Like, I traded him in our league before the season for essentially a random first. I would say that team that I traded him to kind of has a wide range of finishes, in my opinion. Do you think that was the right move? Obviously, not looking into what happened this year. And then what do you think? Do you trade him now for? Do you still think you would trade him for a random first, or do you think he costs more now?
He probably does cost more. Like, you probably got to throw a player in there. Like, and I'm not saying like a nothing player either. Like, I don't know if we ever actually said we're always talking about half PPR, super flex, all that stuff. The nice thing about him being the very last guy in the draft taken is like the Niners don't have to pay him like anything, like he's literally like, I might be making more money than him. That's actually not even close to being true, but he doesn't cost anything. And he's doing exactly what the Niners need him to do, So it's like, he was definitely the guy that was picked up off waivers last year. And if you turned him like what you did, like you turned him into a first for this upcoming year, I think that was still the right move to do. Yeah. At the time, his value has risen since then, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily be looking to sell as a contender. He's a young guy. He's going to be in that system for a while. Especially because they shipped off Trey Lance and Sam Darnold's not taking his job. Darnold's still on the Niners, right?
Yeah, he's still there.
Probably. Okay. Yeah.
He's still there.
No. So I think Purdy's a strong hold right now. It's like, I'm not moving him for anything less than like the equivalent of 2 firsts, and even then it's like, I don't think I'd necessarily even want that. I think he's the perfect guy to have on any roster, honestly, like rebuilding or contending.
Yeah, I would still trade him for if I felt like this team was going to be a top 3 pick first. Like, I would still do that pretty easily because he is still the last pick in the draft. And, we still have to see a little bit more for me to, be completely convinced, this is what he is. Like, for example, I'm looking at the list here. Like, Kyler Murray's below Brock Purdy. If I were to turn, what's that?
I'd rather have Kyler.
Yeah, and my point is like you could easily tier down if Kyler's in a different tier or not. Like it's up to you, but like you could trade Brock Purdy, get Kyler, and maybe something else. Like you might be able to get something on top of that, and I would do that in a heartbeat. Like these are the types of moves that I would try and do. Like if I got Kyler and a second for Purdy, like gone, you know, or if even if you go down further, like one of the yeah, I mean, like,
would you trade? Because so you mentioned like if you think like if you think this team is going to be like if this pick's going to be a top 3 pick, you would trade it. So what about a guy who was probably a top 3 pick this year? Would you trade Brock Purdy for Bryce Young straight up right now?
I would want the Bryce Young side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I would trade. Like, if you could turn Brock Purdy into Bryce Young, like, I think that's a win. It might,
but I think you can
turn
get
out
more.
to be a win. What's that?
I think you can get more. To be honest,
Yeah,
like,
probably. You probably can. I don't know. I don't think the person who drafted Bryce Young is necessarily ready to like to turn tail and run necessarily, but who knows? I mean, throw it out there. See if you can get Bryce Young and a second for Brock Purdy, and if they counter with, "Oh, I'll just trade you straight up," then it's like, yeah, I would definitely take that.
Yeah. No, I probably would. Yeah, it's tough though because you also have to like think about what's this going to look like in a month, and Bryce Young could fall and Brock Purdy could rise, and then like so maybe trading him straight up now is not the right move, and waiting a month and being like, I think Brock Purdy's going to continue, I think Bryce Young's going to continue to look bad, and I can get more, you know.
Yeah, honestly, if everything keeps going the way it is, I don't really see Brock Purdy taking over any of the guys above him. Like maybe like if Trevor Lawrence like I feel like his name still holds like so much value. Like I don't think he's gonna go above him unless like Lawrence either gets hurt or just completely plays like trash, you know. But like he's not busting into the top 5. I'm talking about Brock Purdy. I don't think that's happening. He's not overtaking Lamar. You know, obviously Stroud's been playing out of his mind. Like, you know, Burrow, Tua, Trevor, Justin Fields. Like, I can't see it happening. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but
I can see the Fields, like if what he's done the last 2 games, if he goes back to what he was doing the first 3 games, I can see him replacing Fields.
I feel like
in a month
this
from now.
week. Yeah, I feel like this week and last week was a real shot in the arm for people, like for the Fields managers, where they're like, "Oh no, he is still good." You know, I mean, look at the way that Fields played last year at the beginning of the year. Like, I remember trying to convince the guy who had Fields in our league, like, dude, this is not working. He's your QB2, and you know, for the first like 8 weeks. I was right, you know. It's just like, dude, he's getting like 7 points, you know. Like it was just like it was atrocious, you know. So there is definitely that. Fields has the way higher ceiling for sure, but Purdy has a much higher floor than Fields.
Yeah, but there's going to be people saying they did it against the Broncos and Commanders, and they're not very good teams and things like. And then he has to do it. Like, I guarantee you, if he just looks terrible the next game, like, people are going to start freaking out again about Fields. So
yeah, the roller coaster.
Yeah, but to go back to it, I think it was the right play was to trade Purdy. Getting a random first for Purdy before the season was the right move. Now, did it turn out right? Maybe not, but, like, it was still the right move. Like, you have to make those moves, and if you're right 70% of the time, you're going to be wrong sometimes, but if you're right 70% or 60% of the time, like, you'll take that, you know, and you're going to be doing very well if you're right that often. So with stuff like that. So just perspective, right? Like, I always get on dad about like 4th down play. Oh, they shouldn't have gone for it after you see they failed. It's like, well, No, like you can't base it off the result, right? Like you have to base it on like what was it the right decision in the moment and whether or not it succeeded, right? Like it's kind of how you kind of
Right.
have to approach these trades here. Um, Brandon Ayuk has risen up a bit in the dynasty world. He kind of has been all off season, but he's up to he's moved up 10 spots over the last month into wide receiver 13. Can he get much higher than that? And is now the time to trade him for that reason? Or you just keeping Ayuk? Like, let's just say like you could be contending this year. Someone offers you again a random first. Are you just keeping Ayuk, or do you need a little bit more than just a first?
Honestly, Ayuk, like he's a interesting one because I do like the talent and everything like that, but like just the 49ers just are they're a tough team for the playmakers because they have four really good ones. You know, he's they got McCaffrey and Kittle plus Debo. It's kind of like it's a lot of mouths to feed. So if I could get honestly, I don't think I would trade him necessarily just for a first. I feel like if you could turn him into some of the receivers that are below him, I would much rather have those guys. Like I would rather have DK Metcalf than Brandon Ayuk, for example. T. Higgins is pretty far down there. Probably that's a lot to do with like Joe Burrow and how he's playing this year and all that stuff. I'd rather have Higgins though than Ayuk. Like if you can turn Ayuk into Higgins or Metcalf, like I would do that definitely.
Yeah, and again, you could probably get more on top of that. Like always try to get that extra piece.
Yeah.
Like to me, I agree with you. Like I think they're in the very similar tiers. And so like even if you slightly tier down, but you pick up a second, you pick up a first, like if someone's willing to give you like even like if someone's willing to give you a first round pick, and I'm just kind of going down the list, like a take Dell for Ayuk, I'm taking it, like,
Oh yeah.
that like stuff like that. And I think you could do trades like that, like you're tearing down a couple tiers there, but you're getting a first round pick. Like that's the smart move to make ultimately. Like, yeah, maybe you're hurting yourself in the short term, but you want to build a dynasty essentially. You want to build a team that's good for a very long time type of thing. So yeah, he's interesting because one thing, he's coming up on a contract. He's going into his I think he was a first round pick. So next year will be his fifth year option. And a lot of guys they don't want to play on that fifth year option. They want money. And are the 49ers, they feel like a team that might not want to pay him a bunch of money, like I just get that vibe. So does he lose value? Does he lose value if he's no longer on the 49ers?
Yeah, I guess it definitely depends on where he goes, If he goes to like the Chiefs or even if he replaces, one of the receivers on the Chargers, then I think that makes him go up in value, honestly. But I don't know. I think right now is about as high as he's ever gonna get. Like, he's right there on the edge of like a wide receiver one, and I don't think that's necessarily where he belongs. Like,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love the player and everything like that, but I think he's close to peak, if not at peak right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'd be looking, he's a prime candidate for me to again look to tear down and pick up something. And you potentially could be getting a player that's giving you very, very similar production. And in the end of the season, it's not really going to make much of a difference. Yeah, Brandon Ayuk's probably going to outscore Tank Dell or Nico Collins, but is it going to be enough to where it's making the difference, in terms of the piece you pick up, right? Straight up, yeah. I don't know if I would do it necessarily straight up, but definitely not for like Tank Dell or something, but just always try to get something extra. Like always try to get something extra.
Yeah.
So
try and get JSN.
Yeah.
Trade Brandon Ayuk for JSN. You can probably get that done, especially because for whatever reason, JSN's 6 spots lower than Brandon Ayuk. If you could make that happen, like bank on the talent, and the draft capital. Not necessarily the talent. That's the wrong word, but
no, for sure. Everyone else on this team, like again, CMC is awesome. He's going to break fantasy football potentially again this year. But again, he's at the point where you're kind of year to year with him. Like just ride the ride, I guess, at this point. Like,
definitely belongs on a contending roster, and he's worth his weight in gold. Don't sell him for anything less than 2 seconds, but you should be able to get more than that for him. Honestly, you should be able to get a first, or sorry, 2 seconds. I meant 2 firsts. CMC is, you just ride that until he's done. Like you just keep playing him. Like there's absolutely no reason to move on from him.
Yeah,
unless you are not a contender at all.
For sure.
Cash the check.
Debo, Kittle, like I don't think too much has changed with those guys, to be honest. Like I don't think we really need to talk about them. Like Kittle's getting to that point where age-wise and him being a tight end, like he's not really much of a difference maker. And so I don't think we need to spend much time on those guys, at least as of now. Maybe
the nicest thing about Kittle is he is one of those tight ends where it's like, oh, now I don't have to worry about tight end. Like it's not always going to be like pretty, but you don't have to have another tight end. Basically, if you have Kittle, he will give you those weeks where he booms. But
you should.
Yeah.
Onto the Cardinals. Again, some interesting things happening. A fun team to watch. Michael Wilson, I don't know. Do we think he's kind of the real deal? I'm sure he's risen up a bit over the last. He's up 20 spots over the last month. I'm sure a lot of that's within the last week or so. If someone throwing a second round pick at you for Michael Wilson, are you just taking that and banking on Michael Wilson doesn't become that type of player? Or?
Yeah, you know what? The first time I ever saw him was in the Senior Bowl, and he was the shit in the Senior Bowl. And honestly, but that's when he got on my radar. But if I could get a second round pick for Michael Wilson, assuming that you got him with a late third / even a fourth, I think it's fine to cash out on him after a couple of big games and everything. Just get the value for him right now. He could turn into something else, but we don't even he's not even playing with his quarterback that he's going to be playing with in the future, most likely. It's either going to be Kyler or someone else throwing him the ball next year, especially, or maybe even later this year. So, and we don't know what that chemistry looks like. I think he is. If you could get a second for him, awesome. If you could package him with a second round pick and get a first, that's a smash play. I don't know if anyone's quite doing that yet. But I think sell him now, get what you can. Meaning at least a second round pick. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Or, you can wait a little longer and see if he hits a couple of times more and sell him for even more, for sure. Especially if you're on a contending team, and it's always nice as a contending team to somehow pick up picks as well, and not giving up players that are going to help you win this year. And so that's always a decent strategy. It's all right, I still want to get picks. Well, here's Michael Wilson. He's not going to make my starting lineup most weeks. Let me see if I can get a second for him. And, so you're gaining draft capital as potentially the league winner is kind of the most ideal situation, I would think.
Yeah.
So yeah, Joshua Dobbs. What's he worth in fantasy now? Like Superflex, of course, Dynasty, Superflex. Like, is he worth more than just like a third round pick? Based on what he's going to do this year?
It is tough because you don't know how much longer he's going to play. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if he keeps playing the way he's playing, like let's assume Kyler is out like for the entire year. Like if they want to get him right, like he's easily worth, I'd say a second round pick. Like honestly, I think it's going to take more than a third to get him on your team, but I would give 2/3, and get him on my team if I was a contender, especially. Like, I think that's pretty fair.
Would you take if Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, and Joshua Dobbs are sitting there on waivers? Who are you taking first? Because they're all ranked right there.
Yeah, Mac Jones is who I'd go for.
And then Zach Wilson?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I'm holding Zach Wilson in one of our Dynasty leagues specifically, even with like the Aaron Rodgers trade and all that stuff. I mean, like, I don't think he's like completely worth nothing yet. And it's like, it's kind of funny because I don't think I'd give 2/3 for Zach Wilson. So I guess that kind of answers my question. Geez. Yeah, it's tough, man. It really depends on where your team's at. Like, I'm not trading for Zach Wilson, but I'm not necessarily getting rid of him for nothing either in a super flex league.
I would have traded for Zach Wilson before the season. Like, thrown even a third round pick at him. See if I can get him. Just like banking on the fact, like, this guy is going to get another chance. We didn't think it was going to happen as soon as it was, but even if it was somewhere else, like, these high drafted, like Trey Lance is going to get a shot at some point, like throwing a fourth round pick at him, I'm fine with, just knowing the fact that they are going to get a chance. And when they do get that chance, you could maybe flip them for even more, or you could hit on them. So, but I agree with you with the Mac Jones Wilson. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, like, I'm looking at the couple of guys below him, I'd rather have Will Levis or Hendon Hooker on my team than Zach Wilson. Like, if you could turn Zach Wilson into one of those guys, like, do that, even as a contender, honestly, unless he is your literal, like, QB3, I guess. I don't know. I think I'd rather have either one of those other guys.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you can get Josh Dobbs, he's playing for a contract too, and he's probably proven that he'll get one. So he could be like the Jacoby Brissett's. Like, how valuable has Jacoby Brissett been? Or Andy Dalton or Heineke. Like, these guys have value for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, whether you're rebuilding or not, like, if you're rebuilding, I think it's always smart to throw as many running backs and as many quarterbacks on your team. Like, obviously you want your stud wide receivers and stuff, but like, I'd rather have the running back 3 on a team than the wide receiver 5 on a team, just because it's way more likely that running back's going to get some run and be good.
Okay. I see what you're saying. You're saying to, like, hold running backs as potential trade chips.
Yes.
I got you.
Exactly.
Because I was going to say, I do the opposite. I'm trying to, like, that orphan league, I'm trying to rebuild through quarterback and receiver because they have the longer shelf life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, I got you. Now that's a good strategy. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, if we're talking about, like, I'm talking about, like, the wide receiver 4 or 5 on a team versus a running back 3. Like, I'll take the running back 3 because, like, we've already seen it, this year. Like, like a Justice Hill or something. Like, he had value, and you could probably even just turn him into a third round pick or something to the Dobbins manager or something.
Jerome Ford from last year, he was the number 3 there, and look how valuable he is now.
Yeah. So, and same with quarterbacks, like, throwing these guys like a Heineke on your team, and Heineke's the starter. All right, I'm going to trade him to a contending team that needs a QB3 or something, like and whatever you can get from them.
It's kind of funny. Just a quick anecdote. I know we're kind of like going a little long on just these couple of teams so far, but I remember my wife Bree, like she mentioned because she lost Aaron Rodgers like straight up, like obviously like at the beginning of the season, and that was her quarterback 1/2. She's got Kyler also, but it was funny because like when she went to go look for another guy, she was like, there's actually nobody on waivers in our league, like quarterback wise, that's projected to even start a game the entire rest of the year. Like they all have 0 projected points, like, and it's because they're all on our rosters, like that's definitely a lesson to be learned. Like, yeah, Heineke, even like Gardner Minshew, like, especially like going into the season, like he shouldn't be on waivers, like you don't know what Anthony Richardson's going to do. Who's the backup in Andy Dalton for Carolina? Even Jameis Winston, like he should be on a roster, because he's a capable backup quarterback kind of a thing. And even though like that didn't really play out this last week, but yeah, we'll talk about them later.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, onto the Seahawks here. JSN, again, kind of like the Quentin Johnston thing. He's falling. Like, I don't know. Yeah, he is falling, but I don't know how much. I don't think anyone's still going to try and, like, if you can get him, buy low on him, do it. But I don't know how many people are actually going to sell him at a low price. I think people kind of knew what they were getting into with him. I would hope, at least. But yeah, like, I don't know. There's not a whole lot on this team to talk about, which is why I threw JSN on here. I don't know. Anything you want to say about JSN? Is it kind of the same with like the Quentin Johnston stuff? Like, don't worry about it. Hold on to him. It's a rookie receiver. We didn't expect much for both these guys. It was more Addison than anyone.
Right. Yeah. Four games in, like, don't panic. Go buy JSN. Like I'm actually going to try. I really hope that Quentin Johnston steps in to a bigger role in these next few weeks, and like because I have him on that orphan league, and I want to trade Quentin Johnston plus like maybe like a Cortland Sutton or something like that for JSN. Quentin Johnston plus a second for JSN. I would do that like easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. What about Puka Nacua? Would you trade him straight up for JSN?
Honestly, I would. I think you can get that done too. Like, I just look at the potential, like what, like, I guess we can't get too caught up in like what we thought was going to happen kind of a thing. But like, I think that's a move. Like if you could make that happen, like, I think that's a total win. Like you're turning a 4th round pick basically into JSN, like straight up, like depending on how you feel about the player. Not that I think Puka is going to like disappear all of a sudden, but if you could make that happen, definitely do it.
Yeah. I would too. It's the right play. It just is.
I would give up Puka plus to get JSN. I wouldn't go like too nuts with it. Definitely not like Puka plus a first or anything like that. Like, but I don't have a good example of like what I would like. I'm not off the top of my head, but yeah, I would throw a little bit on there just to try and sweeten the deal if need be.
Yeah, no, I agree. So yeah, it's kind of the same stuff with these rookies. Like, just hold on or buy low if you can. Kenneth Walker, I think a lot of people were down on him. I'm actually going to go back and look at like where he fell to. Another example of like maybe we talked ourselves like too much out of him a little bit. He's RB4 now. So it looks like he was RB3, 4 heading into it, and then the draft happened and he dropped to RB8. So he didn't drop too far. RB8, RB10. Just a good lesson of like RB12.
Yeah, let's say RB12 right before the season started. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think that was like injury stuff, but yeah, how are we feeling about like Kenneth Walker? Again, like, are you looking? Is he one of the running backs that you look beyond this year? Like to me, it's like Bijan, like Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe there's like one or two other guys, but like it's Kenneth Walker in that group of guys where like you can look a little bit beyond just this year, or no.
Yeah, I think you can, honestly. Like, it's hard to do for sure, but I mean, the dude was awesome last year. He's awesome this year so far. You know, like all the Zach Charbonnet concerns, kind of like they don't really matter as much right now. You know, I mean, the guy is. The guy, I mean, he's on the Seahawks, you know, which have kind of changed their identity a little bit. They're not necessarily like the run first, like heavy team that they were a few years ago. But I mean, I think that like Ken Walker is like he's a hard one to like. You're not going to be able to buy him cheap, but if he's on your roster, I don't think you're not selling him. Like I can't really imagine like what you're selling him for necessarily. Yeah, I think he's an easy just like hold him, ride him, and worry about trading him later.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, yeah, I was gonna say he seems to me to be that perfect. Like, he's probably gonna. I'm gonna double check what he has to be. What, a top 10 guy at least, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
So in half PPR so far this year, he's RB5. I can see him finishing as a top 5 guy.
Oh yeah,
definitely a top 10 guy, and I would trade him after this year. Like, I would do it because Charbonnet is there. He could easily take over the backfield. Like I wouldn't put it past him. So like, and they could just kind of move on from him. They don't want to pay him, whatever. Like a lot of things could happen. So it probably won't happen next year, but yeah, he's the perfect like candidate of like, yep, I'm just gonna ride him this year. I'm gonna get a top 10 running back, and then I'm gonna trade him for potentially a first round pick or something. So
yeah. Well, I mean, just think about where he was drafted. Like he was a top 5 pick rookie wise last year in rookie drafts, like easily. Like he went 3rd overall last year in our draft, like behind Breece Hall and I think Drake London, but like, I mean, he could have easily went 2nd, and he could have went 5th kind of a thing in your rookie draft last year. And it's like, there's a reason for that. Like, definitely ride the wave for now.
Yep. And then move on.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, that's kind of it with the Seahawks. I mean, Geno hasn't really changed much. DK, Lockett, I don't think they've really changed much. So I don't think we need to spend much time on them. So we'll get to the Rams, the most interesting team for sure in terms of dynasty and redraft. Puka Nacua is up to wide receiver 12. Again, it's pretty amazing to go from, I think he's moved up. How many spots was it? 50 something, 60 spots or something like that?
It was. It's something like that.
Yeah. So again, is this the highest he's ever going to be, in your opinion, or can he go higher?
I mean, there are some older guys in front of him. Well, I'm only really seeing like Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. I thought I saw one more, but it's still kind of like, no, yeah. I can't really see him getting any more valuable. Like if this is really like how he's being valued, like, yeah, I would trade him. I would definitely trade him. If you can sell him as a top 12 wide receiver, like easily, like trade him.
Honestly, yeah, I would have traded him after week 1, potentially for a 2nd round pick. And again, that's probably would have been that. I would say that would have been the right decision. Now,
Yeah,
in hindsight,
at that
no,
moment, yeah.
you failed, right? You would have lost. But again, like if you do that same trade 10 times and you hit on it 7 times, like you're gonna not hit on it all the time, but you're gonna overall you're gonna do well for your dynasty team. And then it became all right. He's up to a first round pick after week 2, week 3. Now I don't even know if I would trade him for a random first. If I knew the first was gonna be in the top 5, okay. But like a random first, would you even trade him just for a random first? And I'm only doing that because, again, he's valued as the wide receiver 12. Like, it's not necessarily that I think he's worth more than a first, but to the community, he is, right? Like, I don't know.
He is the wide receiver equivalent of Brock Purdy as far as like what he is to the quarterback, which is funny because I think they're both ranked 12th positionally.
Yeah,
like he is a guy that is a perfect dude for any team. Like if you're a contender, you're loving what you're getting out of him. And if you're a rebuilding team, you're loving that he's on your roster. So I don't see like, I don't think he's a guy that you move no matter what your team is, honestly. I mean, like you definitely like if someone's offering you something ridiculous, like play that according to like how what your team build is. Like if you could turn him into Devontae Adams, you know, like, and you're a contender, like, yeah, definitely do that. You know, if you can turn him into Cooper Kupp, like, yeah, that, you know, definitely do that. Keenan Allen, like I would easily trade him for those guys if I was a contender. But yeah, he's one of those rare guys where he's like, I feel like he belongs on every type of team practically. So it's hard to get away from him, but you know, I would definitely look to move him for the right price, but the price is heavy, you know, and steep. So I mean, just enjoy the lotto ticket.
And I don't think his value goes down. Like I know Cooper Kupp's coming back. I don't expect him to have 15 catches and 160 yards, but even if he's putting up 7 catches and 80 yards, his value is not going to go down really. Like maybe a bit, but like it's going to be like, well, okay, this is what we're getting when he's not the number 1 guy, and we know what we can get when he is the number 1 guy. Like, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like I'm just going to read off some trades that have happened. So this person traded Puka and a first round pick for AJ Brown. What side would you want there?
AJ Brown.
I don't know, man. Like, I love AJ Brown, but like,
I know I was going to say AJ Brown's your dude too, so that's saying a lot that you would like that you're even hesitant on that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're getting a first round pick and potentially a guy that's worth like maybe 2 first round picks. Like, I don't know what he's worth. Like, I wouldn't trade Puka just for a first round pick anymore, unless again I knew it was going to be like top 3. So like he's worth more than a first round pick. So you're kind of getting like 2 firsts and something for AJ Brown. Like, what if someone offered you 2 firsts and a second for AJ Brown? Like, are you keeping AJ Brown or?
I think honestly I'd rather have AJ Brown.
Yeah.
I just don't like. He's one of those guys. Like he's just so young. Like he just got the contract before last year. Like he's on like one of the best offenses in the NFL. Like he's young. Like he's got it. He's got it all. He's got it all going for him. So I just don't see how I can justify that necessarily. Like I feel like you're kind of like you're cashing in the lotto ticket a little bit, where it's like, oh, like all it took was a first and you know. Wherever you got Puka, waivers, 4th round pick, 3rd round pick, whatever. Like, it's like, yeah, you're winning. Like, turn him into AJ Brown.
What about Puka? This person traded Puka straight up for Jahmyr Gibbs. Who would you want?
Yeah, that's tough.
Really
I think I'd. What's that?
It's really hard.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, maybe I'm just like.
But would you rather have Jahmyr Gibbs are you basing that off of production, or because you got to take into account their perceived value right now? Like,
Right.
again, Puka's a top 12 receiver. Like, that's more valuable than, Gibbs is 5th overall running back, but obviously the receivers are more valuable than running backs. Like, so I think I would take Puka just because I think I could get more out of Puka in a trade than I could with Jahmyr Gibbs, in a lot of leagues. Not maybe if you play in a smart dynasty league. Like if you play think about our league, there's a few guys that are very reactionary to like what's happening now, what are you doing for me now type of thing. So like, I don't know. I think you could. It depends on your league type of thing. Like you probably shouldn't, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I mean, like Gibbs, like it's funny, like I haven't watched like a ton of the Lions yet. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into that, but yeah, like I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs looks like he's just ready to explode. Like he's gonna he's gonna run, like he's gonna have his games, like for sure. Like he's just kind of gearing up. The thing that kind of bothers me about him is that I just think about like how Detroit used DeAndre Swift, and it was kind of like, dude, get that guy the ball more, and obviously there was injuries and all that stuff, but it's like, give him the ball, like I can feel like Gibbs is like that exact same player on the exact same team from the last few years where it's like, dude, give that guy the ball. Like he will make it happen. I swear, we haven't really seen it yet, but I think I'd still rather have the Gibbs side. Like he's very exciting to me to watch, even though he hasn't really done it yet.
Which of the rookies from last year, receivers, would you trade Puka straight up? So would you prefer, obviously, Garrett Wilson? We want Garrett Wilson. Chris Olave, we'd want him. Yep. Now, Drake London, who would you rather have?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'd have to go. I don't know.
Just because, like,
that's really tough. Yeah. Honestly, like if I could, I might actually try that in one of our, in that orphan league because I do have Puka there. It's like maybe I will try and get Drake London for him. I don't know though, but like
according to the community, you keep trade cut, which is community. You could get probably something else on top of with London for just Puka because London's 23rd.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you should be able to get more for him, and it's like I think I would definitely take London and something for Puka. That something being like, I guess maybe, might only just take a second, honestly, but you could probably get more than that.
Yeah. What about Jameson? I think you have to take Puka.
Oh yeah.
Over Jameson. Jahan Dotson.
No, yeah, I'd rather have Puka. And
Treylon Burks.
Yeah, Treylon Burks, Christian Watson. I'd rather have Puka. If you could get two of those guys for Puka, I would do that. Like any two of those guys, I would take those guys over Puka. Especially like I feel like you're turning one into two potentially, obviously, and then you only really need one of those guys to hit, and then you kind of feel okay about your decision, So I would take any two of those guys, but I wouldn't take just any one of them single.
You have to keep in mind fit and scheme and teams is so important in football. Just look like Drake London would be, if he was in Puka's spot, he would be smashing like with the Rams and McVay and Stafford. Like he'd be and those guys could just not be there. Like Stafford already has a hip injury, and he could barely walk after last week. Like, he could not be there next year. And McVay could not be there. Yeah, so, there's that to worry about. Like, what does Puka look like when it's Stetson Bennett throwing him the ball and Sean McVay's not there? Like, it could look like not very good. So Like, I don't know. We don't know if he's quarterback proof matchup, or he's not. We don't know if he's Devontae Adams or something, or Justin Jefferson, like in that regard. So, yeah, super interesting. It'll be fun to go back and look in 4 more weeks where he's at. Again, and then kind of the same guy, Kyren Williams, is up 54 spots at the running back position.
So ridiculous. Like,
it is ridiculous.
54
like
slots.
Yeah, so he is RB 15. Again, like, people are valuing like Charbonnet like less than him, which is fine, which is fair. But like, would you trade out Charbonnet in a second for Kyren, or do you need more? Do you need a first round pick for Kyren at this point? Like, 23 years old.
Definitely, I would need at least a first. Like, I'm not selling them for anything less than a first or its equivalent. It's interesting because I'm looking at. So yeah, like you said, 23 years old. This is only his second season. He was a 5th round pick, so I'm just imagining like you either got him off waivers or like in probably like the last round of your draft or something like that. If you can turn that, like if you just flip it right now, first round pick, like easy, do it. Like just cash it out, like not to say Kyron's going to be bad. Like he's obviously the dude there, for now, but I don't know. Like I would cash the ticket in, honestly.
Yeah, I would definitely too. I think he could get hurt, unfortunately. Like, he's very small. He's 195 pounds. Like, they're giving him a huge workload. I don't know. Like, I'm seeing trades where, like, someone traded Kyren Williams and Alvin Kamara for Jordan Addison. Like, I would do that easily. Like, I would take Jordan Addison for those 2 players.
I feel like I feel like you're giving up too much in that trade. Like,
for
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would do that, honestly.
Well, put it this way. Like, what if you don't know anything for Kamara beyond this year, right? Like, he's going to be 29 to start next year. And what if Kyren Williams gets hurt in 3 weeks? Like, he's nothing. He tears his ACL. He's literally like, he's not Bijan. Like, he's not even Javonte Williams. He's not Javonte Williams. If Kyren Williams tears his ACL, he falls from RB 15 to RB 45. Like, he's not Javonte where he falls from RB 4 to RB 30, like, or 28 or 25. Like, that's reasonable. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with that. It was just like, I would easily do that for Jordan Addison, who I think is going to be a good receiver. Like, in the moment, yeah, you're probably giving up a little bit too much. You look at it next year, you're probably like, wow, I got a steal for Jordan Addison because look where Kyren is and Kamara's nothing.
And honestly, like, I just want to say something real quick, like, to that effect. I kind of like I was talking to Dad recently, and I was like, I really like how Mike trades because you pay the fair price, and like you overpay for guys that you truly believe in. Like, you have conviction in your trades, and it really does work out pretty well, like more often than not for you, because you know what you're looking at, kind of a thing. So yeah, I trust you in that. Like, I'd be a little hesitant. Like, I'm just not. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is the right move. I just feel like Kyren. Like, I guess people are kind of high on Addison right now too. Like, kind of like higher than they should be. I think. Where, I guess I'm thinking more like redraft and stuff. Like, where it's like, yeah, again, it's only 4 games in, and it's like, why isn't he doing more? But he has been good, and we've seen like what his like potential is for sure. So yeah, I don't mind it.
Yeah, and again, it's just like, I always try to look at the guys where like Nick Chubb, who was a perfect example of. We'll go and look at what Nick Chubb is now, but like, he literally went from, you could maybe get a first round pick for him So like, what can you get for Nick Chubb right now? Like a 3rd round pick? Like,
yeah, it's tough. He's tough.
Yeah.
He fell 24 spots down to RB 31. Literally on a play. Like it's one play. It's funny because he kind of like, I'm looking at his chart and he has like the dead cat bounce kind of a thing, like, well, hopefully that's not what it is. Like that's literally like that's like a stock market thing where like something like crashes down and then it kind of like people kind of realize like, oh, like there is some value to be had here. So they buy it. And so it goes up a little bit, but then it like crashes back down again. It's literally just think about like a cat like falling off a building, I guess. It's kind of morbid.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at with Kyren. Just like he's RB 15 right now, and that literally could disappear, by the time this video is out. Like it literally could just be gone. And so again, it's so hard though, because it's like, man, he's producing as an RB top 5 running back this year. Like I understand that for sure. Like maybe if you're a contender, you hope it doesn't happen and you ride it out type of thing. But if you can tear down to like, I don't know who we said before, but if you can get a guy who's slightly below him and pick something else up, like I think I would do it, just protecting yourself, like protecting your investments kind of. So
fair enough.
Yeah, anything else on the Rams? I don't think there's really much. I mean, Tutu is nice to see. We're gonna need to see more or for a longer period for him to, be worth.
Yeah, if you could get a second for Tutu, definitely get rid of him. I don't know if you can quite do that, but I don't think I'd sell him for less than that. Honestly, I wouldn't sell him for a 1/3 or even 2/3. Like, you might as well just hold him. He's young. We've seen like when he's involved, like he can make it happen. He is a small guy, but
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like for sure. But yeah, we'll finish up there and we'll be back, I guess, with the North teams in the next videos. As always, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys.